Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting solopreneurs share their startup stories. They also deliver tangible strategies that they would implement personally if starting their business over today. Each episode is a startup masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Abby Sims. Abby, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I'm glad to be here.
So it's a kind of a unique interview today. Abby is actually sitting in the town where every person on the planet that I am related to by blood that is older than me lives. So
yeah,
I am 1,100 miles away from everybody I'm related to, and she is sitting probably a driver 9-iron away from him right now. So how's the weather in Bryan, Arkansas?
it's wonderful. It's nice and 80, and it's been pretty sunny. It's beautiful spring weather. We had our last little cold snap last week, I hope, and full on spring.
Ready for spring to come on. Well, as you're getting ready for spring, why don't you share a little bit about Abby with our listeners?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. So for the people who don't know where your family lives, Bryant, Arkansas is just 20 minutes south of Little Rock. And I'm actually a transplant to this area. I'm originally from South Jersey, but I moved here about 18 years ago and fell in love with the state. I fell in love with a guy too and got married. And between us, we have 3 kids. I'm a full stack software developer, and it's kind of by accident, really. I went to school to study political journalism. And after 2 years, I decided that wasn't really my bag. I didn't really enjoy the classes, and I wasn't doing very well. So I dropped out of college, which was kind of crazy for a straight A student who graduated early from high school to go to college. But I had to admit failure a little bit and regroup. And I ended up creating my first PHP web application in 1999.
Wow.
Playing a video
That's early
game.
days. Yeah, that is early days.
Yeah, let's say a video game. We were playing a computer game online called EverQuest. So anyone who maybe gamed around that era will recognize just how addictive that game was.
The precursor to Fortnite, right?
Yeah, and World of Warcraft.
There you go.
But yeah, so I made this app, and it was not very good. Obviously, I was learning as I was going, but I really thought, hey, I could do this. And so I decided to go back to school, took some night classes to learn how to program.
Isn't that called failing forward? I mean, once you have a little knock in life, if you're just kind of leaning into it and leaning forward, that good things will happen.
Yeah. Like I said, it was really accidental. Nobody had suggested to me ever at any point growing up that I should go into a computer science related field. So I'm really fortunate that, it happened because I really enjoy it.
I just clicked. So walk us through kind of this. There's a big gap here between, your first app that you developed. You said it wasn't very good, to actually leading a successful company today. So kind of walk us through that journey.
Sure. Yeah. So I moved to Arkansas. It was right after the .com bust, So I was from South Jersey, and I got out of school in 2000, and everybody else got out of their jobs in 2000. And so we were all looking for the same jobs, and, 9/11 happened, and I just thought, I had an opportunity to come here, and I just thought, why not, I came here, and I ended up landing in a couple of different places that really formed me as a developer. I worked for the state for a little bit, and then I worked for a company that oversees electrical transmission, which I know nothing about electrical transmission, but I was writing software and report dashboards and learning. I did that, and then I ended up in a couple of agencies, web agencies. And that was where I really kind of started to get the itch to get my own clients and do more work. And so when I had my youngest child in 2011, I decided to go work as a contractor for some friends. And they had some really great enterprise clients and a really large tourism client that we worked on some really fun stuff. But as I did that, I started thinking like, well, if this is going to be my job, I need to be thinking about, pay, benefits, retirement. And I just kind of realized as a independent contractor in the scenario I was in, that was going to be a short-term thing.
Yeah.
So I decided, rather than go find another job, to go make my own. And in 2014, started to separate from my friend's company and just formed Idestini.
So has it morphed from 2014 to today? I mean, from what you first started, or guys that wrote down on that, that cocktail napkin, your first business plan. I mean, what does it look like today versus what you initially thought?
Yeah. So what I initially thought was I would work half as much and make the same money, right?
Every entrepreneur's dream, or maybe it's more of a nightmare. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I had read Brennan Dunn's Double Your Freelancing Rate right around that time. Mm-hmm. And so I had all these mechanisms in my mind that I was going to, charge $150 an hour and just work 20 hours a week, right? Yeah. But no, I quickly realized that was not all that was entailed having a business. And I didn't really want to be working by myself. So I knew I wanted to grow a team at some point. So that meant I had a lot more work to do than just find one client and work for them,
Yeah.
So we kind of grew. The first year, my goal was really just to replace my income, that was my initial goal, was just don't take a pay cut,
Mm-hmm.
And
you can work 120 hours a week, but just don't take a pay cut.
That's right. Well, and then in the end, I was fortunate. I was able to do that. Like I made almost exactly what I had made the year before in my first year.
Wow.
And it was, and it was all mine, right? It was all my, my clients, my effort. And so from there, I started to kind of take on more work than I can handle. I was,
mm-hmm.
And I had some contractors some friends that did some work for me, part-time, moonlighting, nights and weekends for me. And when I had enough of that I had a full-time person, I just decided, okay, it's time to make my first hire. And most of my hires from there have worked out a lot like that, that we just kind of continue to grow the business, the work that we have, to a point that we know we can handle an additional person.
Right.
So
did you also, it also gives you kind of a chance to have a test run with people if they kind of work and do some contract jobs for you before you bring them on full time?
Yeah, sometimes that was the case with my first hire.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the thing with professional contractors, though, is they know they have a pretty, they're pretty in demand. So if you have to, anyway, most of them are pretty booked up all the time. And when they have downtime, it's not the end of the world. So they are not, although today with the rise of remote work, it might be a little easier to convince them to stop doing sales themselves. But yeah, it's been a mix. I've definitely have hired some of those original contractors, and they end up sometimes too, they're entrepreneurs and they want to do their own thing too.
Yeah.
So sometimes
you don't know how long you're going to keep them, but, and I imagine the ones that are not booked up may not be very good at what they do. So there may be a reason that they're not booked up.
I love Arkansas, but I'll say, everyone here is so relaxed. It's not, my feeling about like Philadelphia and New York City was just, it's like, it's very competitive. And I think people here like to enjoy the natural state.
Yeah.
So they're just competitive enough. They don't really mind if they have a nice, and it goes so much further here. Like, a $75,000 salary in Arkansas is way different than it would be.
Oh yeah. I mean, just get on Zillow and look at the housing prices and on the East Coast where I live, and versus the East, in the Midwest, it is amazing the difference. But so I've got a question for you. So I hear this all the time, and we have a lot of listeners that are not, techies. So what in the world is a full stack developer?
That's a great question. So basically what it means is I can build the database, and I can build the user interface, and I can build all the stuff in between. So the thing that makes them talk to each other. so not to get really technical about it. Yeah. There's
Now,
a
does
lot
this
of,
include like CX and like the customer experience and the user experience and all that, or is that more on the design side of things?
yeah, so that as well. Not all full stack developers are designers, and I like to say that I have an eye for design, but I don't draw. So if I'm given a framework, a design system, then I can absolutely design an application. And I do dabble in logos, but I don't draw. But that's where, yes, if that's why you have to surround yourself with other talented people so they can bolster those strengths. But yes, I do all the design work for Idestini right now. So all the apps that come through, I will sit in the initial part of the work at least and lay the framework out, so that people know what things should generally look like. And then from there, most of my developers can, figure out the little details,
Right.
the big,
Right.
I set the big picture and work on sort of the overall branding and look and feel and the flow of where things will be and how things will interact. And then, usually from there, it's kind of like a form is a form, like, so they can usually get it from there, and then just do some tweaking afterwards. But
so tell me, Idestini, let's drill down a little bit on the company itself. I mean, is it a software as a service? Is it an app development company? Is it an IT service company? Is it a web development company? Is it all the above? I mean, how would you define, if, like you and I are stepping onto an elevator, we're going to go up 10 floors. Give me the elevator pitch for Idestini.
Sure. Yeah. So what I like to tell people is, we have almost an app for everything today. I mean, you pick up your phone and you go in the store and there's a bazillion apps out there. And there's almost something for everything. They may not all be very good, but there almost is something. And but for businesses like they might be able to find a great accounting platform or HR platform, an invoicing platform, but then they're going to look at their job system and the way they process transactions internally, and they can't find something that fits. So they will shoehorn themselves into somebody else's product. And then all of their intellectual property, all their data is in somebody else's platform. And maybe it's difficult for them to get at it and work with it. Or if there is an API, again, it's still this hard process to get to it. So that's where we come in. And, we have a couple of specialties that I, at least the way I look at it is one is creating custom business platforms. So what that basically means is helping them untangle that mess of, they have a great product for a few things and they need a great product that sits in between them and handles the parts that don't. So, if they get an order in and they have to, do all these manual steps in between sending out an invoice, we can build software that they track all those steps and then maybe it just automatically sends the invoice. So we want to get rid of those manual steps. We want to get people out of their tracking work, out of their email inbox. So then also with that, we do a lot of, we do some startup software. So you talk about, yes, we can build SaaS products. We have and recently even just had a client launch one. We focus a lot on trying to help people build the MVP or the version 1.0 of their product,
right,
and help them make really good decisions about what they really need to launch versus what can wait. That's very, I have, even here in Arkansas, we have a lot of people that start software startups and they end up falling into those traps of, to get it done cheaply, they outsource it overseas. Yep. And then it's still, maybe they got it for a cheaper price, but it comes with this, it's kind of buggy. It never works quite right. It's hard to manage that team. And so we try to balance that. We're not as cheap as an overseas team, but how can we help? Well, we can help by reducing scope to to a manageable amount of work that really meets what they were trying to do without.
I've even heard horror stories of people like holding this for ransom, like they do the work and then they won't release the work to you until, well, the price is going to be double now, that type of thing. Or
yeah, and from experience, they don't have to threat very hard either. Most people, even some savvy technical-ish founders, when it comes to trying to recover their stuff out of AWS or Azure, they're stuck. They don't know where to go. I mean, I have a friend who had it kind of happen to him recently, and they weren't going to give him his code. Well, he had his code. He didn't know he had his code because he didn't understand the concept of, where that was housed. So he was kind of waiting for them to send him a zip file. And it's like, no,
you've already got it.
You don't need them. Just kick them to the curb. But we've definitely helped some startups in that area. Even if we're not building their MVP, we help them kind of, get their platform underneath them and maybe make some different choices.
I mean, it sounds like you have a wide variety of services. I mean, maybe what you've described is pretty refined and pretty narrow in scope, but it sounds like to me you virtually can do a lot of different things. And it's have you struggled a little bit, like in the, I guess 7 years you've had the company? Have you struggled in trying to focus, should I niche down? Should I go wide? How do I kind of dabble in a lot of areas and see what's really going to take, kind of what spaghetti sticks on the wall type thing? I mean, how is, as the founder of Idestini, how have you worked through that?
Yeah, I still do all the time. From a business vertical perspective, I'm just not ready to settle down. That's kind of how I look at it. There are things that we won't do. There are definitely verticals that I can go, I don't really want to build software for rockets. Okay. I don't want to be responsible for that level of liability, but, but there's plenty of stuff that we can do. But I really don't know. We may fall in love with a vertical one day or a particular product we're building, and we may niche down. But for now, we really focus more on this kind of business that we work with. And they tend to be smaller organizations. We're really not a fit for enterprise software development. We have just enough processes, is what I like to say. And, a lot of times some of these larger companies want you to have a whole lot more structure, rules, organization. And so I like to find people who are okay with, that kind of pragmatism, I guess is kind of what I like to say. Right. It's just, if you're going to be, if your company is already past that and you have to go through a bunch of hoops to get anything done, we're probably not a fit to work together anyway, because my team just wants to get things done. And I mean, fortunately, so far, we're able to operate just fine with that set of values.
Yeah.
So
I would think that would keep you away from government contracts and things like that have a high bar, of entry and speaking of a lot of hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah, we are navigating that too. We have a couple of state clients. Some smaller projects are pretty easy to kind of get in, but the larger that the project gets, the more that I know that that's not a fit for us. But there are still a lot of smaller agencies in a lot of states that we can help, and we can augment some of their teams a little bit. We have worked with a couple of state. We've had 2 different state clients, and one of those clients we've had multiple projects where they just have more stuff than they can get done.
Right.
So yes, the larger state projects, I don't even know if I want to get started.
Federal, I mean, that's a whole new level. That's right. You start doing US wide projects.
It's really frustrating as well, kind of knowing what I know, how much money that the government will spend on some of these projects when they really don't have to. But it's not my battle to fight quite yet.
Is it fair to say that some of the service you provide might be like Zapier for small business? I mean, is that a good comparison? Like, are you trying to be almost an API between two like off the shelf software
Yeah.
functions, or are you trying to actually design the system itself?
Yeah. So a lot of times what we're trying to do is figure out, if the company had a dashboard, what would be on it? And then when you know those things, you can look at, well, where can they get that data from today? Is there already a system that they're working with that works well to collect that data? And when there isn't data available, that's usually when we get an indicator that, they probably need some technology. They need a web app to track, to enter these details, to send notifications, to warn them when something is overdue, right? Like we start to see, sometimes like I said, they have products that work okay for parts of things, but then there's those gaps where they don't. So that's
Right.
really what we do, is try to come in and figure out, how can we build a dashboard for the various roles in the company? It's not just, the business owner's dashboard, but, you may have 4 departments in your company,
Yep.
and each of them need to look at things a little differently, and they don't need to be distracted by some things. So we're trying to build applications that give people just what, depending on their job role, just what they need
Mm-hmm.
to do work. But
I
then
mean, you
also give
got
that,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was saying, I mean, you also give them that ability to roll it up and make it accessible to make decisions off of.
Right.
You know,
I mean, usable
yeah,
data. I mean, I can understand. So it's, I mean, it's interesting that, I mean, as you're describing your service, I mean, you not only have to understand the tech, you've got to understand the business process itself. You have to have an entrepreneur's hat on, or a founder's hat, or a CEO's hat, or a C-suite hat on that says, I've got to understand how this works and what they should, or how it should work. And then we can build systems to kind of support that.
yeah. Well, maybe that's where my interest in politics and journalism helps me. For maybe the early training, being able to ask questions and assess things. I hadn't really
Yeah.
thought about that, but maybe there's something to that. You're right. Really the knowing what to do is sometimes the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to look at what's going on in a business and give them that kind of advice. A lot of times they know something about where to start. Um, you know, I don't want to come in and tell them how to run their business. That's not necessarily what I'm trying to do. I want to come in and understand how they do things today and help them imagine a way it could work.
Mm.
And if that feels sticky, like they like that, then
Yep.
then we go do that.
Right.
Change is hard, so we like to really approach things slowly in phases, and not too slow. I just, like
Incrementally.
yeah, let's look at what do we want to get done in 6 months, and if we can't get it done in 6 months, let's put it off, and then maybe do that phase next year, so that we can make sure that they, learn once they have what they thought they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, they kind of learn, okay, well, we can do these things. But yeah, we do actually, a lot sometimes use Zapier
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of things. Again, it's like, it's a thing that watches for things to happen.
It's a tool. Yeah.
And yeah, don't want to reinvent that.
Right.
There are definitely times where that's all that's needed. That, hey, once this record hits the database, go trigger an invoice. There's already an API for that right there. So,
Yep.
there are obviously pluses and minuses to all of those decisions. I love Zapier. I mean, it gives you such a great user interface, lots of data. If something doesn't work, you can replay tasks. I mean, if you try to roll your own system that does that,
Yep. A lot of tech behind that. That's for sure. That is for sure. Have you seen COVID have an impact on your business? And I mean, are you all distributed, or are you working in a central office there, or how does that work? And how have you seen COVID impact that?
So we do have a small office. All of my team is here locally. It's always been important to me, really, to have a team that could be accessible to each other. And part of what I really wanted to do was I wanted to hire I don't want to say less experience. I mean, I wanted to mix, right? I wanted to be creating jobs for students coming out of college and, juniors, and so I wanted to have a good mix. And I felt like to really mentor those kinds of folks that we need to be together.
Yeah.
And we work actually at the local high school here. We have a high school intern every year. We wouldn't be able to do that if we were fully remote, at least not very easily. But so we have basically a 3 out of 5 day policy come in. When COVID first hit, we were all, it was kind of, everyone was trying to figure out what was going on. We stayed home for probably 2 months and just worked from home.
Right.
But once, eased up, our office is pretty large. There's only 5 of us at the moment. So, it's pretty
kind
easy
of spread
for us
out.
to
Yeah.
space out. Yeah. But even when we're in the office, we use Slack, and we might be sitting next to some close enough anyway that we could talk, but a lot of times we're still typing.
I think that's the Social Dilemma movie that talks about we're still locked into our phones type thing.
Yeah.
So
well, it's weird. Yeah. There's it's Slack and all these things, they've really changed me. I mean, I get annoyed when my phone rings now.
Yeah, I understand.
Like, why are you calling me? Text me, like, you're just interrupting my day. Like, I have nothing else to do but answer your phone call. Yeah. I think, all this technology has changed the way we interact with one another. And I don't think it's any less impersonal necessarily for us to, kind of put the message out, and
manage
if that
a little
person's
bit.
They're available, we can pop up and talk.
No. It's like, Teams and Zoom, stuff like that. It has, is it a green light? Is it a red light? Is it a yellow light? I mean, am I somewhat busy in a meeting, so don't bother me. But I'm curious, like if you could jump in a time machine, go back to 2014, what is maybe 1, maybe 2 things that you thought, man, if I knew that then, what I know now, it would be a game changer? What's like one thing that would really come to mind that you're going, I wish I would have known that, it would have been a completely different journey?
Yeah. Wow. There are definitely some lessons I've learned along the way. If that, I'm trying to think, what is that big wow aha? There are a lot of little wow ahas, not putting your eggs all in one basket. I think that's something we all have, any business owner is going to learn, no matter how much you like the person and no matter how awesome an opportunity is, it is not a good idea to only have one client.
Yeah.
So that would have saved me some heartache in my 3rd year. And then, I think still, if there was like one thing that I could go back and tell myself when I was starting, probably would be, a lot of that sales funnel stuff, but not even, I think I was actually too tied up on creating a sales funnel, and I was afraid to make those outbound calls. Right. I was just afraid to ask for the sale.
Yeah.
So I would definitely go back and tell
ask for the sale or close.
Well, just, I think both. I mean, I think I was, I wanted people to come to me and ask for services.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's what I would kind of go back and just say, you're a very confident person. Don't be afraid to just ask, I think I felt like that was, like I said, I just wanted them to come to me. And I just, I didn't want to be pushy. And I've learned, now, over the years that it's not, there's an appropriate time to ask for the sale, but you have to build toward that moment.
Right.
So there's, I would kind of go back and just tell myself to, just make connections, follow up those connections, check in with them, tell them what's going on. And then occasionally say, hey, we're going to run a special for the next 3 months and do roadmaps for half off. I don't know. Like that's the kind of thing I would kind of go back and say, don't be afraid to just ask for people to work with you.
That is sage advice, and it's kind of right off the cuff too, because I didn't tell her I was going to ask that question before. But you did a great job of. I mean, I really love those two. I mean, it's diversify and don't be afraid to ask. I mean, what's the worst they can say is no. So, Abby, as we wrap up today, I would really like you to tell us maybe who would be an ideal client for Idestini, and then just tell people where they can find you online. So make the sale. Ask for the sale here.
There you go. Yes.
She's not afraid anymore, folks.
Well, if you are still running any kind of operations out of an Excel or a Google spreadsheet, we should talk. If if your to-do list is just solely your email inbox, we definitely that we can fix that too. We want to create systems for people so they can hand off the work. They can train anybody to come and do that that next whatever it is that you're doing. Somebody else needs to be able to do it, and we can't do it if it's in these silos. So if you're a small to medium-sized company that likes working with some people that are we're really down to earth and pragmatic, we work fully transparently, we want you to know as much or as little about what we're doing as you want. And then we'd love to talk just to see if it's a fit.
And they can find you. What's the easiest place to find you?
Yeah, so our website, definitely, I would love for people to check it out. It's idestini.com. That's idestini.com. And then we're mostly on Facebook and LinkedIn. We're occasionally on Twitter. Our handle is Idestini on all of those, so definitely can look us up there. And just send us a message. I'd love to chat.
So I am really curious. Where did the name come from?
Okay. All right. So going back to the EverQuest days, when I created the website for the Guild, I needed to kind of create an email address, and I had a Yahoo or something, but I wanted my own. My character's name was Destiny Danadari, and so I got Idestini because in 1999 it was everything, iPod, anyway, everybody was doing that. When I was trying to figure out a name for my business, I couldn't figure out a color and a noun combination that I liked well enough. So I said, I already have this domain name. I've had it forever. Let's just
Why
make it
not?
Idestini.
I mean, what's a Google?
I was the only thing that was going to come back, so you can't ask for that very often these days.
Exactly. Well, I love the backstory and I love everything that you shared today, and it's just been a pleasure to kind of hear your story, hear your business transition, and just kind of the things that the why that gets you out of bed in the morning. And Abby, just thank you again for just taking time to share with us and share the story of Idestini, and just really playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Abby, have a great week.
Thanks, Kevin.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.